The markets are trained to watch for the obvious signals. They watch for press conferences, for official announcements, for the moments when a government steps to a podium and declares a new policy. But the most powerful signals in geopolitics are never announced. They are sent quietly, in meetings that don't make the front page, in statements buried in embassy press releases, and in actions that only reveal their full meaning when you connect them to everything else that is happening. Iraq just sent a sovereignty signal. It was not loud, it was not dramatic, but the markets are watching, and they understand exactly what it means. Let me take you inside the meeting that happened on February 11th at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Chargé d'Affaires Joshua Harris sat down with Abdul Hussein al-Musawi, head of the National Approach Alliance. The official readout was brief, professional, and utterly unremarkable to the casual observer. But buried in that readout was a phrase that should stop you cold. Harris stated that any future Iraqi government should remain fully independent and focused on advancing the national interests of all Iraqis. And then he added something even more significant. We are prepared to use the full range of tools to counter Iran's destabilizing activities in Iraq. Let me translate what the diplomatic language actually means. The United States just drew a red line. Not on a map, but on the political future of Iraq. And they did it publicly, on the record, for every political faction in Baghdad to read. This is the sovereignty signal that the markets are watching. It is not about the exchange rate today. It is about the conditions that will determine the exchange rate tomorrow. Maliki called this blatant interference in Iraq's internal affairs, and he is right. It is interference. But it is interference with a purpose. The United States is not trying to control Iraq. It is trying to prevent Iraq from being controlled by Iran. This is the deeper sovereignty signal. The United States is publicly committing to protect Iraq's independence from Iranian domination. Harris's statement about using the full range of tools to counter Iran's destabilizing activities is not empty rhetoric. It is a warning to every faction in Baghdad that the old game of playing Washington against Tehran is over. The United States will not stand by while Iran-backed militias and political factions undermine Iraqi sovereignty. Now, let me connect this to what happened just days before, on February 5th. Governor Ali Alak met with the same Joshua Harris at the Central Bank of Iraq. That meeting was about banking reform, dollar sales, and monetary stability. Harris affirmed America's full readiness to continue supporting the efforts of the Central Bank of Iraq, enabling it to achieve its goals in enhancing financial and monetary stability. Read those two meetings together. On February 5th, the United States pledges full support for Iraq's financial stability. On February 11, the United States pledges to use the full range of tools to counter Iranian influence and protect Iraqi sovereignty. These are not separate conversations, they are two sides of the same strategy. The United States is building a firewall around Iraq's financial system. The SWIFT compliance requirements, the electronic transfer platform, the Federal Reserve reviews, the blocking of 80% of suspect transfer requests, all of these are designed to sever the financial pipelines that have allowed Iran-backed groups to drain dollars from Iraq. And now, the United States is publicly committing to protect the political sovereignty that makes those financial reforms sustainable. This is the signal the markets are watching, not a single data point, but the convergence of financial, reform, and political red lines. Now, let me give you the numbers that matter on the ground today. February 14. The official central bank rate remains fixed at 1,320 dinars to the dollar. But on the streets of Baghdad, at the Al-Khaifa and Al-Harithia exchanges, the dollar opened Saturday trading higher, hovering around 151,750 dinars per $100. In Erbil, selling prices stood at 150,850 dinars per $100. The gap between the official rate and the parallel rate is real. It is painful. And it is the direct result of the same financial reforms that are part of the sovereignty signal. Musar Saleh, a financial advisor to Prime Minister Soudani, explained it clearly. The fundamental reason for this depreciation is external constraints. Iraqi banks must now register dollar transfers on an online platform that reviews every request. The Federal Reserve examines these requests, and if there are any suspicions about the final destination, it stops the transfer. Since this mechanism was adopted, the Federal Reserve has blocked about 80% of transfer requests. Economist Ahmed Tabakali put it plainly, contrary to current misconceptions, rumors, and misinformation, there is no evidence of U.S. pressure on Iraq. The new regulations require high levels of disclosure and transparency. This came as a shock for many of our banks, who were not used to this. Sudanese government is not fighting the new regulations, it is embracing them. It is using them as cover to do what previous governments lacked the political capital to do: clean up the banking sector, force compliance with international standards, and starve the parallel economy of the dollars that sustained it. Now, let me give you another piece of evidence that the sovereignty signal is real and that markets are responding. The U.S. Energy Information Administration announced that Iraq exported nearly 5 million barrels of crude oil to the United States during February. While this is down from 6.3 million barrels in January, it still represents a significant volume and average of 257,000 barrels per day in the first week, 228,000 in the second, and 170,000 in the fourth. Why does this matter? Because oil exports to the United States represent hard currency revenue that flows directly into Iraq's foreign reserves. Every barrel sold strengthens the central bank's ability to defend the currency. Every dollar earned increases the reserves that Iraq described as at a very comfortable level exceeding $100 billion. And every transaction conducted through official channels reinforces the compliance infrastructure that Iraq is building. But there is another layer to this. When Iraq exports oil to the United States, it is not just a commercial transaction. It is a geopolitical signal. It is Iraq choosing to integrate its energy sector with Western markets rather than being dependent on Iranian energy or Eastern buyers. It is Iraq demonstrating that it can be a reliable partner in global energy security. And it is Iraq earning the political capital that translates into continued support from Washington. Now, let me take you inside the domestic front of this sovereignty signal. On February 11, the Director General of the Iraqi General Customs Authority, Thamer Qasim, made an announcement that should be on the front page of every financial newspaper. He confirmed that the Kurdistan region has begun responding to the unification of customs tariffs with federal border crossings. He announced advanced understandings with the region to implement the Asakuta electronic customs system across all points of entry. Let me translate what this means. For years, one of the largest leaks in Iraq's financial system was the differential between federal and Kurdistan region customs duties. Traders would import goods through the region, pay lower tariffs, and then smuggle those goods into federal Iraq without paying the difference. The dollars that should have flowed into the central bank's reserves instead flowed into private pockets. That leak is now being sealed. Qasim was explicit about who is affected by this change. He stated that those affected are traders operating outside the customs and tax systems, as their financial transfers are not registered in the Asakuta system and they lack tax accountability. He emphasized that entry into Asakuta requires both an import license and a tax identification. The government is not targeting innocent merchants, it is targeting operators who have been evading taxes and moving money outside the formal system. And it is doing so with a tool that makes evasion impossible. The Asakuta electronic platform provides accurate, real-time information, eliminates estimation and human interference, and contributes to combating money laundering. The traders have protested. On February 8, markets in Baghdad, Mosul, Kirkuk, and Basra came to a standstill. Wholesale traders went on strike, shuttering their shops and protesting the new customs tariffs. They reported that the cost of Clearing a single shipping container had surged. The Iraqi Traders Association called for an open-ended nationwide strike. To the casual observer, this looks like a policy failure. It looks like a government imposing burdens that the economy cannot bear. But listen to what the protesters are not saying. They are not demanding the Asacuta system be improved. They are not asking for better implementation. They are demanding the system be cancelled entirely. They are demanding a return to the old way, the way where goods could be undervalued, duties evaded, and dollars siphoned out of the country. The government has not backed down. MP Shagadi Al-Zaidi of the Construction and Development Coalition led by Prime Minister Soudani dismissed the protests as an attempt to muddy the waters and stated the government would not reverse its implementation of the system. Baha al-Araji, head of the bloc, went further. He explained that many traders previously imported goods through the Kurdistan region, where customs duties were lower and revenues did not reach the federal government. Under the new unified system, traders are now paying customs duties everywhere, including at crossings in the Kurdistan region. He stated that objections were motivated by private interests rather than the public good. This is what sovereignty looks like on the ground, not a speech from a podium, but a government that refuses to be bullied by vested interests, not a dramatic declaration of independence, but a systematic closure of every loophole that has drained the nation's wealth. Now, let me connect this to the political pressure that is reaching its peak. The constitutional deadlines for government formation are passing. The presidential vote is stalled. The coordination framework is pushing for Maliki. The United States is pushing back, and Prime Minister Soudani, the man who has overseen these reforms, is caught in the middle. Markz, a prominent voice in the Dinar community, commented on this directly. He noted the headline, "State of Law Threatens to Dissolve Parliament Over Stalled Presidential Vote." His interpretation was that the move is now to consolidate and force because they have passed constitutional deadlines. They may force the issue and force the Kurdistan region, and this will pretty much sign Soudani up for prime minister. The political pressure is not chaos. It is the final stage of formation. It is the last piece of the puzzle being forced into place. And the United States has made its position unmistakably clear. Any future Iraqi government must be fully independent and focused on advancing the national interests of all Iraqis. This is the sovereignty signal. The United States is not just watching. It is drawing lines. It is making commitments. It is putting its weight behind the forces in Iraq that want a truly independent, sovereign, stable nation. Now, let me return to Governor-elect's February 10th interview one more time, because buried in his answers is the philosophical core of the entire strategy. When asked about the money supply outside banks, Alak said, if money owners feel reassured about the existence of a fair and transparent tax system, they will bring their money and deposit it in banks. Reassurance, that is the word. The entire reform agenda: customs unification, banking consolidation, electronic transfer monitoring, tariff enforcement. All export compliance is aimed at one thing: reassuring the holders of that 80% of the currency that circulates outside the banking system that the system is now fair, transparent, and safe. The political sovereignty signal from the United States is part of that reassurance. When Iran-backed factions cannot dominate the government, when dollars cannot be siphoned to sanctioned entities, when the financial system is protected from external manipulation, then the holders of that 80% can finally trust that their money is safe inside the formal economy. When that reassurance takes hold, when the shadow economy begins to trust the formal economy, the 80% will start flowing into banks. That inflow of deposits will expand the lending capacity of the banking system. That expanded lending will fuel investment and consumption. That investment and consumption will drive economic growth. And that economic growth will be the fundamental foundation for a stronger currency. This is why the markets are watching. Not because the exchange rate changed today. not because the central bank made an announcement, but because the conditions that determine the long-term value of a currency are shifting, slowly, methodically, irreversibly. The United States just committed to protecting Iraqi sovereignty. The Kurdistan region just agreed to unify customs tariffs. The As-Sakuta system is being implemented despite protests. The Federal Reserve is blocking suspect transfers. The oil is flowing to American markets. The reserves are comfortable. The gold is accumulating. Every single one of these signals points to the same conclusion. Iraq is not just sending a sovereignty signal. It is building the infrastructure of sovereignty. And when that infrastructure is complete, when the political formation is finalized, when the customs system covers every border, when the banking system monitors every transfer, when the parallel market has no dollars left to trade, then the currency will finally reflect the nation it actually represents. The traders protesting in Baghdad are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of success. The political maneuvering in Baghdad is not evidence of chaos. It is evidence of a system finally being forced to choose between dependence and sovereignty. The United States has made its choice. The question now is whether Iraq's political class will make the same choice. The markets are watching, and they are placing their bets on sovereignty.